For those of you who don't know me, I'm Marty Palma. I'm the development manager here at SBS. Work closely with Dave and the rest of the dev team to try to keep our projects and products on track for new initiatives, features, updates. So this presentation, we're going to just talk about the design platform enhancements that come in over the past year. What we've done as far as releases, some of the new feature sets that are in, and we'll have a little bit of stuff at the end too that talks about some future stuff. So to get started, we have automated utility design, right? Most of you here that aren't on the substation side are very familiar. This is our flagship product. This is the product that almost everybody's solution is using for distribution design. But beyond AUD, we also have Substation Design Suite, or SDS. And that's made up of protection and control, which is on AutoCAD Electrical. And then our new product that kind of came out about a year ago, or a little over a year ago, year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Now I can't even get the dates right. But P4A, which is physical for AutoCAD. And so what does this mean? Substation Design Suite, physical for AutoCAD, right? Are they two different things? Actually, P4A and AUD are the same product, okay? So underneath the hood, they are the exact same code base. What you see when you install it is just how it's put together and marketed and pre-configured, okay? But underneath the covers, these are the same products. So when we're talking about improvements that we're making to these products and the things that we've done over the last year, we're not just talking about automated utility design, we are also talking about P4A because they are one and the same thing. The nice thing about it is that there's a lot of overlap between the two. So yes, though one is doing a lot of physical design for substations in a 3D space, and the others, you're working in a 2D space with kind of the 3D getting built up in the background for you automatically, they still share a lot of common capabilities. So when we add a feature for one set, it often improves the same features, types of use that you can have for it in the other product as well, or how it would be used in substation versus distribution. So when we talk about intelligent distribution station modeling, we're really just talking about intelligent modeling. That's what this product is all about. Whether you're calling it P4A or you're calling it AUD, it is really the same thing. So some release updates since last year's PUG at the end of August in 2023, or 2022, last year's PUG, till now. Monthly updates, compatibility focus. So we had updates from AUD 8.3, from 8.3.6 to 8.3.10 point releases all went out over the last year since the last PUG. And then 8.4, which is the most current version that we have out currently, we released 8.4.2 to 8.4.8 through this time frame. And typically at this stage in time, right, during this time of year, we would have released 8.5 already. But the way last year went, we basically decided we had so many things coming so fast that we had to get implemented that instead of having to have customers have to wait another 6-month cycle or so to do the next major release to get those enhancements in, 8.4 was kind of a unique situation where we did all those enhancements with each point release that we did and continually added those. So it was a little bit different year for us, but that was just more of us having to be flexible to get new enhancements out quickly for some ongoing projects and stuff that we had at the time and how we dealt with those. But our next major release will be 8.5. We'll talk about that a little bit more at the end. But these are the releases that we've done to date. So AUD P4A changes by the numbers. We've added, since last year's PUG, 42 new enhancements, and we've resolved 120 or so issues in the product over that time. Prior versions, meaning 8.2 or earlier, there were 2 enhancements and 1 resolved issue in that base. On the 8.3 side, we had 1 new enhancement go in. 8.3 is less about enhancements at this point and more just maintenance for those customers that are still on 8.3. And we resolved 40 issues back to the 8.3 code base. And then on the 8.4 side, we've added 39 enhancements to date and 78 issues that have been resolved. So normally you would never see that many enhancements, in point releases like we've done here. But like I said, this year was a bit different. We had to be a little more flexible. So this is what's come out to date and what we've worked on. 10 of those enhancements were pretty major features that we put in. So. Additionally, quick overview on AUD P4A Admin Toolkit, Design Sync, some of the other tool sets and products that we've been working on over the last year. We added support for AutoCAD Map 2017 through 2024 now. So 2024 came out this spring, and we made sure we had support in for 2024. Still backwards compatible with all pre-8.4 configurations, so we haven't had any major upgrades that would keep you from being able to upgrade smoothly or along those lines. We always try to design the product in such a way that any new changes we're putting in, right, are configurable from a standpoint of if you didn't do anything else besides take your current template and move to the latest version, you shouldn't have to do anything. It should just work. But if you want the new features, they can be turned on, and then additional configuration can be done to configure those additional features. So we try to always maintain that as best as possible so that your upgrades are easy and smooth. On the AUD P4A side, we did a lot of work with ribbons and various commands and running commands from the ribbons. A lot of call-out work over the last year, dealing with paper space call-outs and call-outs with XREFs and stuff like that in them. 3D part authoring was a big focus. Being able to author your parts easier, get those parts pulled into AUD and P4A and bring them in and have them added into your design. A lot of focus and a lot of effort in the 3D part space. A lot of workflow rule implementation type items. We're trying to continually make the workflow feature that we added last year more and more feature rich, more things you can do in those workflow rules. And workflows, for those of you who aren't familiar, are just a way for the product to actually interact with the user a little bit more. So instead of just running a singular command, if you're running a workflow, it can prompt the user to pick a certain type of feature and then have them pick a different feature and perform a bunch of actions on those things. So basically more workflow, user workflow type things that we're trying to support. And then we also did a lot of work this past year on the INEX tool base, which is basically the product that allows us to take physical Inventor 3D models and get them quickly and easily up to AUD usable 3D models. So they kind of goes hand in hand with the 3D part authoring and the INEX tool. They get used interchangeably. A lot of our customers have a large 3D model set in Inventor already. And so in order to be able to use those same types of models in P4A or AUD, we've provided a pretty rich tool set that allows you to get those models AUD ready with port authoring and additional metadata and information that AUD wants to use. So, the Admin Toolkit. So what is Admin Toolkit? Admin Toolkit is formerly known as Smart Tools. This is about to release here very shortly, version 4.0, which we were up to version 3.0 of Smart Tools previously. Just put that up there. So we had released 3.0 earlier this year that improved our validation reporting and improved performance of the overall application. And now we've kind of re-architected it and rebranded it as Admin Toolkit. So we basically, it has a new look and feel. It's a single install, and it's going to be a lot more scalable for us now to provide better and better feature-rich features for building your templates. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Smart Tools or Admin Toolkit for that matter, Smart Tools is the tool set, and now Admin Toolkit is the tool set that we use internally and as we're working with you on your projects to build your configurations. So working with a lot of data, right, as we go through these projects, it's very difficult for or it makes it much easier for our customers to interact with the data that we need to get. So we've got spreadsheets that we can fill out for model information and table lookups and all that kind of stuff, where you can manipulate it very easily in an Excel spreadsheet. And then this tool set allows us to pull all of that information back together again and build a template from it, as well as all the rules and everything else that we write. So a lot of effort has gone into this, and as Dennis and Al had indicated, right, we're really focused on delivering faster, implementability type focus, and that was an area that we needed to focus on this past year. And then last but not least on this one is Design Sync. So this is a new tool set that we started developing last year and into this year. This is providing our connectivity interface between substation physical design and substation electrical design. So this is going to act as that gateway and the interface between those two products that allow them to share data, do validation type checks of connectivity is, you know, my physical design says I'm connected, you know, this wire's connected to this and this, but my electrical design has it going to a completely different component. How do you catch those types of errors? So it's synchronization of that data, as well as it provides some hooks and gates to where we can integrate in with other tools and other systems through this centralized database concept. We did some attribute mismatch handling and a whole bunch of updates to the display and navigation. So that's where we are over the past year, where a lot of development effort has gone. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dave, and he's going to get into the meat and potatoes of a lot of the stuff that we did, show you some demos, just talk about a lot of different features and that type of stuff, and I'll give it to Dave.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks, Marty. Okay, so this next slide's something a little bit different. We wanted to kind of paint a picture of the kinds of functionality that we're putting in the product. And I know there's folks that might think that we're sometimes focusing on substation or as opposed to distribution-related functionality. But I think you'll see that most of the functionality we're putting in the product is very general purpose. So I'm going to start just throwing out some categories here of functionality we've added in the last year. And you'll see that most of this has been added. It's really applicable to both distribution and substation design workflows. Perhaps more so in some ways, in some cases, but most of the functionality we're adding is related to building up that core model. A lot of the functionality that you'll see going into P4A is related to just 3D. It's so the more 3D design you do, that's really the P4A focused functionality. This will become important for if you start doing a detailed underground design for distribution. And then some of the functionality is just overall going to be useful in distribution as well. You can see when we improve the rule system, those improvements to the rule system are going to be beneficial across the board. So that's why it's so important for everyone to understand that, you know, you may hear about P4A and AUD as separate products, but as Marty said, they're the same product. And the effort that we're putting into it, you know, is really beneficial across the board. And now there are going to be functions that are, you know, far more beneficial to each area. But the important thing is to see that we're really building up a base and trying to build that common base, so that all the expertise, all the knowledge, all the setup that and the tools that we use to build these can all be beneficial to everyone here at this conference. So I'm going to go over some of the main key enhancements we added in the 8.4 timeframe. So for design workflow and efficiency, you know, as Marty said, we added some stuff to the ribbon, things like recently used models, like some just straight productivity, helpful tools, a new command for placing features. We have a little bit more work to do on this, but this will allow you to place models, right? Not have to worry about categorizing, you know, just searching your entire set of configuration to place things by, say, CU or model name. We've put more work into placing callouts in paper space. I know they've been requested in the past to improve some of the ways you can automatically place callouts in a paper space. We've put some work into that, as well as for in cases that have really been developed for substation to allow you to create sheets in completely separate drawings with XREF models. Some more work on the copy and paste and assembly functionality, and that's again something we're going to be looking at in the near future as well to keep expanding on. And we also introduced a capability so that you can use the replacement functions to kind of copy data over, and that gives you some possibly really useful workflows where you want to just switch models over, or improve the productivity for how to place stuff, change things around in your design. So for detailed design, we've got what I feel maybe, and I'm waiting to get some feedback from all you folks here about this functionality. For doing underground work with sweeps, we now introduce the ability to have those be visualized separately in 3D, so that you can really see where those sweeps are located. You can match those up to the information you're seeing. Deal with cases where you might want to custom design which size sweeps you're laying out for underground design. In this time frame, we also added a comms data model, a detailed model, for cases where you may want to do a really detailed comms design. And also the ability to create a true network topology for conduit. That's extremely important for any cases where we want to do any kind of automated cable routing. And it's something we can look at later and may find interesting, the capabilities that brings. So in terms of implementation and support, a lot of work has gone into the 3D part editor, as well as related functionality like versioning. So that means that you may have parts and models, and maybe those have gone through a couple iterations, or you need to maintain an existing design, with one iteration of that model, and you don't want to disrupt it. This allows versioning, so you can kind of capture that version of those models in your design, and then update to a newest configuration template after that, and retain your old data. Something we've had occasionally happen are issues with saving the industry model database in the drawing. This has been something that came up occasionally. We have now specialized recovery functions so that it can detect when that's happened and can help you recover an industry model drawing. So that could be very important to some folks that have run into that issue occasionally. A lot of improvements to the rule system, allowing the rule workflows to be authored, performing operations like splitting and establishing connectivity, other functions that help allow kind of automated workflows to be set up for common operations. And then the INEX tool is really developed as a great way to author 3D model content in Inventor, and then not really require much work to be done in P4A, AutoCAD, or AUD to prep that model for use. So the idea here is that you can then author all that 3D content completely in Inventor. If changes are needed, you can always change that, and then basically re-import it very smoothly without having to re-author any of the other changes to make that ready for AUD or P4A. And then we do have some very specific 3D and substation functionality around automatic port naming for large complex models. We have some performance analysis tools. This can help if you get into larger models that have a lot of 3D content, to analyze where the heaviest models are and what's really bogging down performance. And then of course support for AutoCAD 2024 brings their latest support for their fast shaded modes. So that's really been an important change in AutoCAD. There were preview versions in 2022, and then 2023 introduced it as a proper feature, but 2024 really has a pretty good, robust support for 3D performance. So I'm first going to talk about a few of the changes for the ribbon and editing workflows. So one of these is the ability to set up a recently used number of recently used for your model dropdown. This may seem like a small thing, but if you're going through a design and you've got a few models that you're placing there, this will just automatically keep track of the last few that you placed, and it's fits into one of those categories of really easy to set up. You just tell it how many recently used you want, and it will retain that. So it's one of those small ones, but it could be very helpful. Also, that the filtering drop-downs now will remember their inputs, so you can set those up, have that pre-filtered for you. Just things that to save you a lot of time from having to data entry a lot of things. The AUD feature command, it's kind of hard to kind of show an example of how this works, but basically it allows you to, and honestly, the best way to set this up is through predefined macros, but basically select things by model, and you can search for them. So imagine being able to just search across your entire configuration. You don't have to worry about if you're looking for a transformer or you're looking for a conductor. You can just type in the CU, the model name, and have it search across. So in some cases, this we're hoping that might provide better support for this in the ribbon over time, so that you can move to more of a just search for it and then place it. Another change is the ability to directly select related objects. So we'd had the ability to view these related objects. Like say, in this case, you're looking at some containment structures in a substation model. And in distribution, this might be something like a transformer on a pad or other relationships, possibly even custom relationships you might have set up in your configuration. This allows you to actually select the objects. So in cases where you need to change that, this makes it far simpler. The selection button on there. So by selecting that, it'll allow that to be contained by a different piece of equipment. Also, there's an option available you can turn on that will copy the data from replaced features. So if you like to go and you've got a design and you've already got some stuff laid out in your design, you just want to change it out, this allows you to use all your ribbons set up to go place things and just swap out and keep all the data that's on the objects you're swapping out. So for callouts, the improvements in paper space are really around allowing automated layout of objects in paper space. So it can annotate, but also transform all that so it's placed in your paper space. Several other options. There's a lot of different workflows you can set up for this. And there's a lot of other other small enhancements that have been made to the callout layout functionality for this. Also, in cases where you do have a XREF drawing. So you can now in 8.4 XREF, have just a regular AutoCAD drawing, XREF, an AUD or P4A drawing into that, and then use a limited set of functionality like callouts and table placement so that you can create a whole separate DWG to maintain things like 2D sheets or bill of material sheets. And so this enhancement will then also check for that. It'll prompt you to open that drawing. You need to open up the related drawing to pull the data from it. It will ensure that you have that drawing pulled up. So just really kind of finishing that functionality up a bit. So the 3D sweeps functionality basically allows you to visualize it. So here you can see normally you would select a sweep, and there would be no way to see where that sweep was located on the duct run. So by visualizing them in 3D, you can kind of see where that sweep is in the run. Even in cases where it might have broken up and put multiple sweeps into a single run, you'll also be able to see those. And so this is can be very helpful if you need to manage aspects of those sweeps individually. Another aspect of this is that they're able to then be modeled as true arcs, true 3D arcs, and that can make for a much cleaner hidden line view. So if you're creating 3D sheets from this 3D visualization, you don't get that kind of segmentation that you would normally get with these. By the normal modeling of this will have to segment those arcs, so you'll end up with segmentation lines. This provides a much cleaner view of those sweeps. So the copy, paste, and assembly functionality have some new options to control the workflow. And there's the ability to, when you copy paste, you're copying from a source drawing, and it's copying the information about those design features. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the information for the underlying models for those features are copied. So previously, you could copy those design features over, and if you weren't using the same template or you had a slightly different set or missed models that were from the source drawing, you'd have the design feature information, but you might not have the underlying models. So now those underlying models and part definitions can be brought over as well. So for 3D performance in a large drawing, turning on the fast shaded mode. Again, this fast shaded mode is available in 2023, but it's a bit more robust in 2024. We do recommend 2024 is a great release of AutoCAD for 3D performance. Also added some analysis functions for analyzing the content. So in a large drawing, you can run a performance test that'll give you results for pan, zoom, and orbit. It will generate a report that you can view in Excel and analyze, which models are, the largest models, which ones are used, how many times they're used. And honestly, this will really just give you a listing of all the blocks that are used in a drawing as well. So it's going to give you a list in total of all the blocks in a drawing, as well as their 3D content. And then, of course, the overall count. To also aid in situations where you might have a really complex model, and this is probably a bit specific to Substation, where we have large structures that have, you might have almost 100 features attached to a large structure, and it's just a little unwieldy to work in the feature info. So there are some options now to have a single display mode, for the tooltips. So that helps manage the data in some of these cases where you've just got really large models, complex structures. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm kind of running through these a little fast. So yeah, if anybody has a question, just feel free. I'll stop.
Please ask questions on this stuff. We've all heard.
Yeah, so I'll go over a couple changes in the part editor. So one pretty useful capability is the ability to select an example. So this button just simply allows you to select an example in the design, and then I'll bring that up in the part editor. If you're, reviewing and trying to, check on the models in the context of the design, this can be very helpful. There's also a bulk import and update. This will also tell you the content of your block library. So this can indicate also which ones, would be updated versus added. It can help you, manage large-scale changes to that block library. And then, of course, there's a new option for design block overrides for this. So this means that, if necessary, you can copy models in that are maybe only used in that design. It could also be used to, say, capture models that you maybe don't want to be replaced, or you want to retain and prefer that version of those by placing them in your design. So this allows you to store a little bit of design-specific part information. And then the part version command is the versioning functionality I referred to earlier. This basically will sort of rename all your models and parts for what's used, so that you sort of capture those models and parts, the definition of those in your design for future reference. So that way, if in the future your configuration changes, those models are modified in some way, you can version what's in a design to sort of capture that design at that point in time. And then functionality for automatically naming ports, flexibility around that so that they're consistently named and numbered, custom naming formats for the ports in cases where you want to ensure that the port names carry some meaning or match common names, terminal names, and things like that. So in the rules system, we've added several functions. A lot of these are helpful for rule-based workflows. For example, tapping features. Previously, rules you couldn't tap and split. Now this allows you to create workflows that do tapping and splitting. This could be useful for automatically breaking out services and things like that. And then for usability, we have some options to always expand, avoid you from having to multiply click every time you go into the rule editor to view everything. So a lot of you may not be familiar with the iNext tool. So this is the tool for defining 3D content in Inventor. So it's a plugin for Inventor, and here you can see the main ribbon tab. It defines functions for creating ports. So rather than defining those ports in AUD, in P4A, in the part editor. This allows you to define the ports and all the other metadata for that 3D content in Inventor so that that can remain the data of record for that 3D content. So over the 8.4 timeframe, we've added the ability to define AutoCAD layers. So you can predefine different AutoCAD layers for subcomponents of the Inventor model, improvements to the port editing and options for those. Improved tools for assigning clearance tags. So clearance tags can be used to define areas of the model to check different clearances. So you can define a grounded portion versus a live portion of the 3D model to be able to do separate clearance checks on those. And then different publishing options, audit information about that can be used for checking on performance. And defining the ports using Inventor work points, right? And so this is an area where we're creating functionality to better merge with the SDS Inventor tools as well, so that we'll eventually get content that can be interoperable very well between those tools, but also allows those to be used in other Inventor scenarios. Any questions about the iNext tool? Okay, another new tool we've developed is the Design Sync tool. So you'll see access to this on the ribbon, and that brings up a palette. Now this palette's available in AUD, P4A, also in AutoCAD Electrical for the SDS PNC tool. So what this allows you to do is to publish your design, all of the a subset of the data of that design. You might think of it similar to publishing a bill of material or publishing out just the raw information from your design, and then it allows you to do that for multiple designs. So the main thrust of this is to be used in a scenario where you have a substation planning and control drawing set, and you have a physical drawing, and you can publish all that information together, and this tool will help analyze and make sure that all the data is consistent, right? That all of the ratings are the same, that all of the tags and identifiers match between those. So, and we are in the early stages of this tool, and we expect this to be something that could possibly be leveraged in future for all kinds of additional workflows. And that's something that we'd also like to get a lot of feedback from everybody here about this, and understand where these kinds of workflows could impact and be helpful. So we've added a configurable display identifier to this so that as you view the data, you can kind of create a custom expression. So what information you want to see as you're viewing the summary listings from here. I don't show it here, but there's also a grid view where you can define a generalized SQL query. So it's very simply configurable, at the level of defining a SQL query to be able to pull data from this. It can be used for just viewing the data. It can be used for exporting out to CSV. There's functionality to track for mismatches of attributes. So you can see more about this later in this week, but basically this is going to show you all the values from all those disparate drawings. So you might have multiple drawings that are all representing the same component. And this will allow you to identify, what are the different values in those different drawings, and sort of make the decision of like, what should the value be? And then this allows you to then assign what you want that value to be and have that be propagated out to those drawings. A kind of a key to Design Sync is that rather than thinking of it as an import or an export, all the designs get to publish their data to the Design Sync database, and it's sort of up to each user of that database to decide when they want to accept that data back in, right? So in that respect, it's not forcing one person's data on anybody else's data, but it still allows there to be a place where you can identify, those data mismatches and work out, what the correct data needs to be in these cases. So there are also functions to pull up these components in a split view, and zoom and find them, select to them. So this can be used to do, kind of some navigation between these different drawings. So once all the information is published from these drawings, it can be used to kind of navigate between them. And also to identify connectivity errors. So all the information that's pushed to this can also publish connectivity information, and it can ensure the integrity of that connectivity information and flag mismatches that might occur in the connectivity models of each application. So a few other changes. Again, the network data model for detailed communications. This is a very generic data model that can be used to model any kind of really detailed underlying, cable, fiber, detailed network modeling underneath the main level you might have for just conductors or conduit. The ability to detect and re-embed industry models after failed save operations. Again, when this happens, it can be difficult to identify where the industry model was located. This will help identify that and help recover an industry model if there was a problem during that process. There are options for reassigning ports when parts are updated. So to handle change management for authoring, as well as those different port definition options. For substation, ports used for to define points for lightning protection and angle bus modeling. Sweeps can now have a maximum radius evaluated. This can help determine when there's, say, enough room for the sweep and help guide proper choice of sweeps when they're automatically laid out. And then some improvements to the P4A clearance tagging function. So we're already working on a few things for 8.5, and it is a pre-release version. It can be made available. I know there's some folks out there using the pre-release version that need some functionality in there, particularly around substation. It does introduce a new panel for establishing connections. Same panel you would see in feature info, but it's can allow you to work in Canvas a little easier in some cases. Some right-click menu shortcuts. Some command enhancements that allow you to do some automated cable or duct routing. And then for a substation in 3D, the ability to establish physical ports as opposed to logical ports. And this is kind of a new concept we've introduced, and it's to deal with being able to maintain both kind of a high-level network connectivity model, but also deal with the fact that, well, in a physical layout, there might be some details of that need to be physically modeled that would otherwise sort of complicate the electrical model. So the cable duct routing functionality is really enhancement to the AUD add to duct and add to segment commands. And these have always been available. I think a lot of folks have used these to go, like lay out kind of a skeleton network and then add in conduits, add in, cables. But what this allows is to use any of the more advanced selection functions to drive that. And then what that allows you to do is then use functionality like a trace. So in this example here, say you could perform a trace from one piece of equipment to another piece of equipment, and then use that to add to the duct or add to the segment, and then it would be able to route that new equipment using that trace. So that's something that could be, very useful and powerful. We did a demo at the SDSIC conference where, you can then drive that through maybe a little bit of Lisp automation to read whole, cable schedule to from lists and generate cables out using those kind of mechanisms. So that's something that we're just looking at. But these enhancements sort of open that functionality up, and we may be, enhancing this further to provide a little bit more out-of-the-box capability for that. So the 8.5 release is going to have a new connection panel, as well as, I think maybe finally adding quick info to the right-click menu. I think some of you folks might like having this available just generally. It's nice to have a couple things in the right-click menu. This new connection menu is also included. And this is to help drive these port situations. So here you can see this kind of semi-transparent panel. That's the connection panel. That's really kind of the same thing you'd see in feature info for editing your connections. But now you can just pull this up. So if you just need to edit connectivity, this can make it a lot simpler to work with that without having to go into feature info, or to even have up, in addition to feature info, to work with changing connectivity. So you'll see there's the normal connection button here, but there's also another button that's made available for the physical connection. This is optional. So this allows you to go in and say, well, this is logically connected to this equipment, but you know what? Maybe this is a multiple cable run. Maybe where this thing actually physically connects isn't really to the equipment. It's really to some other location. And this allows you to set up those physical connections separately. So in this case, it's actually physically connected even to a completely different object to model this multiple cable run. So the smart tools have been rebranded, as well as got a new look and feel. So over the course of the 8.4 timeframe, there was a 3.0 release that made some significant changes to how smart tools operated to drastically improve performance and improve how you get the validation results out. And what that means is that the template builder tool, it allows you to specify most of your configuration in spreadsheets, in Excel spreadsheets. And the validation helps you ensure that the data you've got in those spreadsheets is correct. And so 3.0 introduced the ability to list out in a spreadsheet, any mismatches or missing data you might have, to help ensure the integrity of that data before you build your template. So that was improved in 3.0, along with some drastically improved performance of the tool. So in the 4.0 timeframe, we've really applied a lot of just kind of, technical debt cleanup that we had in the tool, just kind of created a new look and feel. We're trying to push it to where, it's a lot easier to use as a tool. I guess you guys will be the ultimate judge of that. And, we're hoping that this is going to make it a lot easier. We have plans to, further kind of allow this to be set up in a little bit simpler way, improve some of the integration to things like SharePoint, so that it can more easily integrate and work with the SharePoint locations of those files. But it now uses a single install. It'll install as an AutoCAD bundle for all the versions of AutoCAD you have on the machine. Just the way it's set up now is hopefully a little bit simpler to work with, rather than having two separate installers for what were previously a builder tool and also a plugin for AutoCAD and AUD that allows you to export out all of your existing data. So this is some changes that we put into place to just kind of simplify and kind of consolidate a lot of this functionality for the tool. And as Marty said, this should be coming out soon. It's not quite officially released, but it should be coming out soon. Actually, Marty, maybe want to speak to some of the upcoming.
So yeah, just a little more about what's coming next. We'll continue to do updates to 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4 releases. Any bug fixes or small enhancements will continue to come out through the course of this year. Eventually, as customers start to roll off of 8.2, you see less fixes happening there or less change there. And then same thing with 8.3 and then eventually 8.4. As people migrate forward, you see less and less point releases for the older versions of the product. But we do continue to maintain those. We do maintain up to 3 versions back, right? So if you're on 8.2 or 8.3 or 8.4, we'll support you with bug fixes on those versions. So. Next major release will be 8.5, that'll be coming in late fall. So late October, early November is the time frame for that release. We're going to improve more improved assembly, copy and paste features, as David indicated previously. Really a lot of focus on 3D underground design. There's a lot of work that we're going to be putting into that to really get that flow down, make it easier to use, less complicated. It can be tricky, dealing with complex 3D underground stuff. So we're trying to make that as easy to use as possible. And then, as we talked about earlier, expanding on that rule-based workflow type stuff as well. It's become very popular in a lot of the implementations that we're doing. We're finding more and more uses for it, which just leads to more and more capabilities that we want to add to it. So on the admin toolkit side, so as Dave indicated, 4.0 will be releasing here soon, and then we'll begin working on 4.1. And the 4.1 release is going to try to even simplify the configuration even further and improved SharePoint sync file management, as Dave had indicated, as well as even just starting new projects, right? Capabilities like I have a template, and from that template, I want to start a whole new project to create a new template, and just make it faster to get projects up and running and get templates generating. So will really be the focus on that. Additionally, future and beyond for AUD and P4A, we're going to be digging more and more into brownfield workflows, communication network support, design sync enhancements will be continually ongoing because that is very early in that product's life. So we're assuming we're going to get lots of feature requests and stuff like that. Admin toolkit enhancements, as we've already talked about here, separate designs, performance optimization, optimized clearance, schematic line layout workflows, improved point cloud support. We've got a big giant laundry list of things we want to accomplish, right? So a lot of our direction is key initiatives and stuff like that is provided from senior leadership, like we talked about, but we also get a lot of direction from you guys, as we're working these projects, if things make sense and it's the right type of feature to put in, we're open to that. And so, we'll have breakout sessions later this week where, you can sit down with Dave and I and kind of spitball those requests at us, we'll kind of get those collated. We are, from last year to this year, I know we weren't able to implement maybe a lot of the requests that kind of came out of the last PUG, but we still have all that information and we still have a plan for a lot of that stuff. And same thing with the stuff we're getting here. We're going to try to shift gears to always keep a small percentage that always guaranteed of our dev time, right, where we are focusing on few key things that you guys bring up during these conferences. We want to make sure that those aren't getting ignored. This year was just kind of a little bit different type of year as to how the development path went with all this focus on the implementability stuff that we were doing. But we definitely want to get back to those features that you guys want. So we're very interested to hear that. You guys help make this a better tool set, right? You always have a lot of great ideas. So we're very open to that. So with that, I'm going to give it back. We'll open it up for questions, but Dave's going to actually demo some of this stuff as well. Any other open discussion you guys want to have too as well, we can do that. But you want to start off with some demos? So.
Right, so here you can see I've got the recently used set to 3. So you basically can set the however many recently used items you want to see. Here you can see these are the last 3 conduits that were placed, conduit types. In this example, there's a cable path conduit type. It's created to create this overall conduit network model. But that's a pretty simple enhancement. You'll just see the recently used models show up here. Of course, to clear them out, you can clear out the recent models. So for the cable routing, so down here you can see there's a few macros that have been set up for adding cables, right? So say adding cable to conduit, this would be a macro similar to what you might want to add cables into existing just by selecting conduits. I'm going to add a cable to a conduit, but from selected. So this is going to use a trace. So, at the command line, you can almost see it's running the selection trace functionality. So rather than individually selecting all the conduits, this allows you to select a start and end point, and then it will perform a trace to find all the conduits and then add that cable to those conduits. So I'm going to select one of these panels here if I can, and leave here this ending panel. So you can see here it added a wire. It might be a little hard to see in this view here. Just hard to tell what's going on without seeing kind of a visualization, but just to show that it just performed a trace through all those and add that cable. So the idea is then you can then start to automate that. So if you have any information that can list out, from to, this use the identifiers of those start and end points. Those can be driven from a query too. So if you can go query out the start and end points, then it can automatically route route the cables between them. Okay, you could probably see here when I selected this elbow, it's got the individual elbows, even in this case where it's placed a couple elbows together to make the entire bend. You know, you can select and highlight those individually. And so I'm going to run a performance tool. It's part of this command AUD view solids, which is actually kind of an internal troubleshooting tool. We've just added some additional keyword options to it. So this now includes a report and performance check. So I'm going to run the report. So it's prompting me to save a CSV file of that report. And now this is going through and it's analyzing every single block in this drawing and tallying up all of the 3D content to analyze it. So this will tell you how many blocks, how many unique blocks, a measure of the total geometry count. And then there's details in that spreadsheet that can be pulled up. So this is meant to help analyze, you know, if you find that you've got some designs and they're starting to get bloated by some heavy 3D content, you can use this to help identify where the largest models are and which ones are the biggest contributors to the size of the drawing. So this is a test example drawing for some detailed connectivity. So here you can see I've got a multi-run 3D cable here. Over here on the connection tab, you can see what this connection tab looks like, but I'm going to close this and I'm going to pull up the connections window. So this is a little bit easier to use if you're just working and needing to work through fixing connectivity or checking connectivity. And you'll see here that there's also this physical connection button here, right? So if I can click this physical connection button, and then this is a multi-run cable, so it's going to prompt me to select where I want the individual connections to be. So I can click there, and then click there, and then it'll assign those as the physical connections for modeling that in 3D. Even though that from an electrical topology standpoint, it's just really running through this node in the network. So again, this is to help maintain, you know, a legitimate electrical topology, but also give flexibility for, you know, physically modeling the system when that's needed.